still have some seats over on the right-hand side if anybody wants to get under the tent. Hopefully the volume is good. All right. Welcome. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Mike Landers. I'm going to be the Master of Ceremonies for today's celebration. For those of you who aren't from Danvers, I served for 35 years in varying capacities with Wayne in this town. I've had the tremendous honor the last 3 years to follow in Wayne's footsteps as the Danvers representative to the Essex North Shore Vocational Technical School Committee. For those of you who are from Danvers, I'm Bev and Richie's kid. When I think of Wayne and I think of the situation with Wayne, my dad, who was the police chief in town at one point, always described himself as a very moderate-sized fish in a very small pond. Wayne was not the biggest fish in that small pond that we loved so much. Wayne was the great caretaker of that pond. And Wayne spent his career doing everything he could to make sure that every fish, no matter how big, no matter how small, had a better life in that pond. You're going to hear a lot of great things about him, all well-deserved, but I want to make this point perfectly clear. Wayne Marquis was the most influential person ever to live in the town of Danvers. His legacy is written across this community, but I do believe very strongly that he would be so thrilled that this facility and this rail trail was named after him. We all think it was an easy thing to accomplish. It wasn't, trust me. But Wayne got it done as he did with everything. He found a way, he found the money, he found the political necessity, he found the supporters. Wayne got things done, and he made this town a better place for all the small fish and all of the big fish. I want to recognize a number of people who are here today. Pretty much all of the moderate-sized fish in Danvers are all here, and even a couple of bigger ones. We're very, very pleased to be joined today by our new town manager, succeeding in Wayne's footsteps, Joe Cahill. Thank you, Joe. Rodney, who acted for a very brief period of time, very small, but did a great job filling in as well. Jen Breaker, the assistant town manager, is here with us today. Unfortunately, former assistant town manager Diane Norris had a medical issue that came up today. Everything is okay, but Diane, who was scheduled to speak, is not going to be able to make it, but she sends her regards, and obviously everybody who knew Diane and knew Diane and Wayne's relationship knew what they meant to each other. So we wish the best for Diane with it. I saw former Chief Tutko, former Chief Willette. We've got all kinds of members from the select board. We've got people from the finance committee, from the school committee. Just a great group of people here to celebrate with us today. We're going to start first and foremost with Paul McNulty, who is the chairman of the Danvers Rail Trail Committee and played such an important role in getting this particular facility done.
Thank you for having me. As you just said, I'm Paul McNulty. I'm chairman of the Rail Trail Advisory Committee. And we're a small group of volunteers that work to help maintain and improve the trail. And right now, for those of you who may not be familiar, we're pretty much smack dab in the middle of the trail. It runs about 2 miles to the south, up to Peabody, up to Lowell Street, and it runs about another 2 miles to the north, to the Wenham Line, and then it continues up to Topsfield. And sitting here, looking that way, it's going to be about 2.9 miles out to Middleton. Big chunk of it's done, a little bit more more work, and then there's another section that's already done out in Middleton. So that's where we are right now to kind of orient you. I'm going to just talk a little bit about more broadly how the trail came about and how Wayne helped make that happen. And I'm just going to go back a little bit of history. Hopefully I'm not going to be overlapping with other things that people say, but the town secured a lease from the MBTA, a 990 lease, and Wayne kind of saw the virtue of this back in 2010. He understood how important it would be to take advantage of this rail bed, and so he formed a committee. And as someone, as Mike just mentioned, he was really very good at understanding how to pull people together and get their support, to make things happen. And this committee was put together to investigate the feasibility of a trail, and recognizing that there were some folks in the town, it's hard to understand right now as you look around, that were concerned about whether or not they didn't know if they wanted the trail. And so what Wayne understood was having a community of volunteers who work with everyone, understand their concerns and needs. That would help get the trail built more quickly. So the group worked, they understood people's needs, and they put together plans to address those needs quickly. Around the same time, the Danvers bipeds were formed. They were instrumental in getting the trail launched. Wayne encouraged Kate Day and Karen Nelson in Danvers Town Planning to act as advisors to the trail. I think it was a great idea because they gave the committee insight and connections to the town, which turned out to be very helpful over time. Kate and Karen did a lot of work to help gather support from the town. Many folks here may know Charlie Lincecum. I met Charlie back in 2011. Charlie was out on the trail installing these mile markers. Charlie's one of those names you may not hear a lot of, but he was another one that Wayne selected and encouraged to be part of that committee. And he was out doing work on the trail, which was very, very helpful. There's a really long list of early enthusiasts who helped encourage and build and maintain the trail. It's too long for me to go through. There's truly probably hundreds of people over the years that have worked to try to make Wayne's vision come to fruition. We're also blessed that we have dozens and dozens of supporters, many local companies, Mass DOT, Conservation, Danvers Rotor, Danvers Kiwanis, Maple Street Church, and all these people that are sponsoring these mile markers. I mean, again, very fortunate. That was something that Wayne understood, the importance of involving the community in getting the trail built, but also maintained. So the park here is the latest addition to this network. It's a great demonstration of how the community and the town of Danvers have come together to extend and enhance the trail. Without Wayne's advocacy, this park and trail might not exist today. So thank you to Wayne for everything he did to kind of get this launched a number of years ago now, and also to all the volunteers and supporters who helped make it happen and helped make it still happen as time goes by. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. As much as Wayne meant to this town, and again, his influence is uncountable, he was also fiercely loyal and fiercely devoted to both his family and his friends. And I think sometimes we forget how devoted he was to those people. But I hear now from one of Wayne's dear friends, Dan Elbach.
Morning, everyone. I'll start off by thanking Nancy and the Marquis family for inviting me to participate in this incredible and deserved recognition of Wayne's years of dedication to the town of Danvers. What a beautiful tribute it is to a human being, beautiful use of a human being. My name is Dan Albany. My wife is the girl formerly known as Gail McFadden. A lot of you may know Gail. She's a lifelong Onion Towner. I didn't grow up in Danvers as my wife did. However, I have been a Danvers resident for 28 years. I am called an almost Onion Town. Shortly after Wayne's death, there were numerous folks who, at the time, stood before us summarizing what a great family man Wayne was. There were folks from this and other towns across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts who stood and spoke accolades for Wayne's 35 plus years of work as Danvers Town Manager. And a lot of it was summarized in print on numerous newspapers and social media throughout the North Shore and beyond. I never had any interactions with Wayne in his position as the town manager. However, I spent a lot of time with Wayne when he was off the job clock. And so I'm here today to talk to you about Wayne Marquis, my friend. When you look up the word friend in the dictionary, a good friend is defined as a person who is trustworthy, reliable, supportive, and loyal. A good friend offers a safe space to confide in, listen to without judgment, and provide encouragement both during good times and bad times. A good friend is also someone who is enjoyable to be around. They respect boundaries and are honest and open in communication. When I read this in the dictionary, I asked myself, why isn't Wayne's picture here? Over the years, my wife Gail and I, along with Kathy and the late great Bill Gardner, spent a lot of time with our friends Nancy and Wayne. Dinner dates, traveling, skiing, spending time together at the summer homes in New Hampshire. Together we celebrated weddings and births. We celebrated each other's accomplishments, our kids' accomplishments, and the accomplishments of our kids' kids. And we shared the grief of the deaths of our family members and our friends. We all supported each other when our dear friend Bill Gardner passed away. And Kathy, Nancy, Gail, and I continued to lean on each other since Wayne took off into heaven. As a group, we were tight. Not as tight as Rachel, Monica, Phoebe, Ross, Joey, and Tim, TV show friends, but we were tight. During our fun times together, we saw a relaxed Wayne, a funny but never irreverent guy, always playful and happy to be with his friends and wife, always ready to share a story or an experience with us. Wayne loved to experience life, and he wrapped both arms around anything new and different. Several years ago, the 6 of us went to Barbados for a vacation. During a snorkeling expedition, we were lucky enough to swim with a large group of sea turtles. I was snorkeling next to Wayne during our time with the turtles, and all I could hear was muffled sounds from Wayne as he was screaming underwater and pointing as he was expressing the amazement of what was in front of him. Back aboard the boat, he continued talking about what he saw. This time I could actually understand him. Wayne was always looking around the corner for the next great experience life would bring. We also had a group of 7 guys who would meet for dinner every month or so on a Monday night. Wayne was the only one of us who grew up in Danvers, and we would share his stories of growing up in this farm town, working the fields for 50 cents an hour, hunting pheasants and ducks, and trapping mink and muskrats and selling the pelts. What the hell, Wayne? Mink and muskrats? All the Monday night dinner guys would look at Wayne's 32-inch waist and wonder how he could eat and drink so much, still keeping his words, my boyish figure. Again, Wayne's words, not mine. When the guys would gather on Monday nights, we had to wait for seating at the restaurants. The guys would always harass Wayne about having to wait, and we would speak loud enough that the host or the hostess would hear us. Jesus, Wayne, obviously they don't recognize you. Or, wow, Wayne, we thought you had some pull in this town. The best was the time we were harassing Wayne about not being recognized, and the hostess looked at Wayne and said, oh, no, I recognize you. I saw you on TV after the explosion. You were in the crowd standing behind Mitt Romney. Yep, just another example of Wayne's photobombing. And in his humble way, Wayne smiled, and his coin phrase was, imagine that. Wayne loved music, with Tom Rush among his favorites. Wayne admired any performer who could play the guitar and sing. He was always looking for the next concert to attend and organized the guys to see shows at the Hampton Beach Casino, and for husbands and wives to attend concerts as well. On more than one occasion, we had to listen Wayne tell us about the first concert he ever attended, which he was proud to say was Led Zeppelin at the Carousel in Framingham on October 21st, 1960. Can you tell we heard that story a few times? Music energized Wayne. I can remember Gail and I going to a Bob Seger concert in Worcester with the Marquis and the Gardners. You wore those special pants that night, Nancy? While I was tuckered out towards the end, 3 hours later, I looked over at Wayne, who was still up and dancing like it was the first song of the concert. When the conversation turned to music, Wayne's eyes would light up with a whole lot of passion. Even though Wayne was a great storyteller, and don't get me wrong, he loved to tell his stories, he was happier listening to us as we shared our stories. I think Wayne's superpower as a friend was his ability to listen to others share their experiences, whether they were happy, sad, or tragic. And when the conversations got serious, as they sometimes can get, even among a group of friends, guy friends, he always listened with a very attentive ear, never judging, and always happy to provide feedback or suggestions. But, and this is a big but, don't let the Mr. Rogers routine fool you. There was a lot of guy in Wayne. Wayne achieved the rank of Eagle Scout in his younger years, and I'm here to tell you that his Eagle Scout do-gooder hat fell off once in a while. As a guy, he was never shy about giving you a dig or pulling a prank. I won't tell any of the stories here, but I will tell you the best one centered around a friend named Rick and a missing pair of shorts. To protect Rick's identity, I won't tell you his last name. Ponticelli, he's right over there. Wave your hand, Rick. There you go, buddy. If you see Rick, ask him to tell you the story. Like I said, the do-gooder hat fell off once in a while. Wayne loved the outdoors. Hiking and camping was at the top of his list. Every year as a tradition from the time when they were young, he would take his daughters, and later his daughters, son-in-law, and grandchildren hiking. And they would stay overnight in one of those very rustic mountain huts. I don't know if you've heard of these huts, but they're nothing more than a glorified bunkhouse, where you sleep in the same hut with people you don't know. Billy Gardner tells the story of staying overnight in one of these huts and sleeping with, and I quote Billy, people I didn't know, listening to them snoring, burping, and farting all night. The kicker is, Wayne loved the experience. I think Wayne would have been extremely happy to stay in those huts every night. And when asked about staying home while her family stayed in one of those huts, Nancy said, and I quote, not in a million years. In his town manager days, Wayne had as many as 15 suits and just as many blue button-down collar shirts in his closet. He called them his work uniform. He was always sharply dressed, whether it was early mornings at the town hall or late nights at meetings. However, he was in his true comfort zone when he was wearing his cargo pants, jeans or shorts, a t-shirt, a wide-brimmed hat, and his hiking shoes. And in the winter, wearing that stupid trapper hat. That's how I remember my friend Wayne. Wayne showed great courage and strength as he fought his health battle. He stayed strong and hopeful all during that time. One memory that will stay with me happened shortly before he passed away. A week or so before Nancy's birthday, Wayne called and told Gail, Kathy, and I that he wanted to give Nancy a birthday party to celebrate. As it turned out, Nancy and Gail shared the same birthday. So it was agreed that we would have a nice dinner to celebrate. Wayne took control, as he had for decades in his town manager position, and delegated the birthday party duties. It went great. Shortly after the dinner, Wayne asked for his guitar, and summoning all of his strength, in spite of his pain and discomfort, he strummed and sang happy birthday to his wife, Nancy, and his good friend, Gail. As it was, it turned out the last time he played his cherished guitar, and he made it count. The park is a beautiful tribute to Wayne and his contributions to the town. If I know Wayne, and I think I do, is looking down on us right now and seeing the park in your attendance here today, and he's saying, imagine that. I'll close with this. Sports media and fans love to use the term the GOAT in describing generational players. Case in point is Wayne's favorite player, Tom Brady, with, of course, GOAT being an acronym for the greatest of all time. Shortly after Wayne's death, Danvers town moderator Patricia Frazier told the Salem News that Wayne was, and I quote Patricia, the most influential person in the history of the town. I second Patricia's statement when I call my friend, our friend, Wayne Marquis, the GOAT of Danvers. Wayne was the greatest onion towner of all time. Thank you, Wayne, for being a great friend. We all love you and miss you. And thank you to you, all of his friends. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. To tell you what he talks about Wayne's competitive nature, anyone who happened to play in those softball games back then will recognize that Wayne took those very, very seriously, and you saw it come out in him. We're going to take a very, very brief pause. We're going to move this back because it looks like there's a little bit more rain coming, and then we'll pick right back up. Well, that is a brief pause. As we said, unfortunately, Diane is unable to make it today. She really feels terrible because, again, she has such a great relationship with Wayne. We do have, not in the program, but it was here with us, Senator Joan Lovely is going to provide some great words now. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. It's an honor to be here today to honor Wayne with this absolutely remarkable and beautiful park and the rail trail system here in Danvers that he loved so much as it grew under his leadership. I just want to offer that I didn't know Wayne long. I'm not a Danvers girl. I'm a Beverly girl. But for about the decade that I got to know him as state senator, he was truly a tremendous leader here for Danvers in his quiet but strong leadership. And I was always grateful to hear from him and to join with him and with then Representative Spiliotis on what we could do to support and enhance Danvers at the state level. So Wayne loved his Danvers family, absolutely, every one of you. And he really loved his family. And I wasn't a grandmother at the time, I am now, but he always talked about his grandchildren every time I saw him. And I will remember his two daughters at the funeral speaking about their dad. And I didn't know the dad's side. I knew the town manager's side. And I so appreciated hearing about Wayne as a father and a husband and a grandfather. And I loved the story about mountain climbing, hiking. That was really something that you did a lot. And that showed what type of person Wayne was. The amazing family man to his family and to his Danvers family. So I'm so grateful to be here today. Thank you for letting me offer some brief remarks about a truly remarkable individual for this town. I'm so happy that I got to know him, and what a wonderful honor for him today and always. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lovely. I think, again, it shows Wayne's real influence did go so far beyond our community. He had so much to offer to the Mass Municipal Association, and was an active member in that. And in terms of what he did for the Essex Tech in that early years, it's also amazing. We now really have the pleasure to be joined by Falcon Eyes, the Danvers High School's award-winning a cappella group, directed by Alex Grover, to sing a couple of songs for us, one of which is very fitting and I hope comes true, but two of Wayne's. And again, Wayne just absolutely loved music, and I think he would have absolutely insisted that we had some musical component to this today. So enjoy.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been years. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Little darling, the smiles returning to their faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Little darling, comes the sun, do 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 do. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright. It's alright. It's alright. Here comes the sun. Rips the bones from your back. It's a death trap. It's a suicide rap. We gotta get out while we're young. Germs like us. Baby, we were born to run. When you let me in, I wanna be your friend. I wanna build dreams and visions. Just wrap your legs around these velvet rims and strap your hands across my engines. Together we can break this trap. We'll run till we drop. Maybe we'll never go back. Oh, will you walk with me down on the wire? 'Cause baby, I'm just a scared and lonely rider, and I gotta know how it feels. I wanna know if love is wild, babe. I wanna know if love is real. 'Cause on the last chance power drive, everybody's out on the run. But there's no place like the high. Together when we can live with the sadness. I'll love you with all the madness in my soul. But till then, tramps like us, maybe we were born to run.
Thank you so very much. Danvers award-winning a cappella group. As I did a little bit of a research for this, looked up some old Danvers Herald, I actually found Wayne and Nancy's wedding announcement. And in that wedding announcement, back then Danvers Herald really covered weddings. A beautiful picture of Nancy reminded me once again how much Wayne sort of hit up above his weight class. But Nancy's cousin, Robert Ellis Orrell, sang at the wedding. And one of the songs he sang was "Whenever I See," first time I see your face. My gift to you today is I'm not going to sing that. I did talk to Robert, and he wanted to just express how much he loved you guys and how much you meant to him with it. Now I'm going to move on. Peter Zook, a classmate of Wayne's, former town moderator, former select board member, a friend of Wayne's, have a few words for us right now.
happy to be here. The first time I met Wayne was in the 7th grade in Mr. Rossi's music class. Wayne was one of the cool kids in the 7th grade. I was a late arrival from 6 years at St. Mary's Annunciation School. So I was entering a new world, and Wayne was one of the cool kids. Together with Ted Spiliotis, our distinguished former member of the House of Representatives, we were all members of the class of 1971. The last time I saw Wayne was in 2017 when he came to my brother's wake at the Lions funeral home, Norman. He and Norman had worked together on the Colleen Ritzer matter, so there's a long professional relationship there. And I had the privilege of working with Wayne for in his 35 years for half of them, as a member of the Finance Committee, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, and as moderator. And when I think about his role as town manager, he is the personification of the words in the Town Manager Act, a person who is especially fitted by education, training, and experience to manage the town. The hallmark of Wayne's management is that anything he touched, he left it better. Dunn Wing litigation, the reuse of the Holton Richmond School, Hunt Memorial Hospital, the Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant and our investment in that, reuse of the state hospital property, cable TV, Proposition 2.5, highway corridor zone, historic district, public employee negotiations, delicate personnel matters, the 2006 explosion, which I heard in Andover where I was waking up that morning, a new senior center, affordable housing, the Colleen Ritzer case, a diversity committee, which David reminds me has been rebranded, but David, I can't remember the rebranding. All of these are issues that Wayne handled in a skillful and sure-footed way. The one accomplishment which stands out to me is often recognized, but I saw it from a bit of a different perspective, and that's the Essex Agricultural School. David, you were on the board of directors over there, and you will remember that in the days of county government, that was not a very well-managed place. And Wayne, in his participation, made it a much more better managed place. As a matter of fact, we now fight about, limiting the tuitions for the students going there. It is such a desirable school, but that has the hallmark of Wayne Marquis management. I'm really happy that there are people here who can talk about a Wayne Marquis that I did not know, because despite the fact that we were contemporaries in the same class, despite the fact that we saw each other a lot, it was a respectful, and I wouldn't call it arm's length, but it was a professional relationship. Board meetings, he would have individual meetings with boards of selectmen. We would all meet with him and have a list of issues. David Mills, there was always a couple things from you on that list of issues I had for Wayne Marquis. And so we had a respectful relationship. That relationship spanned the cable TV era. So we used to have board meetings before cable TV, then afterwards he became a star. But the juxtaposition of Wayne as the cool kid and the demeanor that he maintained as town manager, I can only describe it as implacable, okay? Wayne never belied an expression different than neutral, no matter what comedy was being provided to his right by the Board of Selectmen. I remember him as a contemporary and a classmate, and I'm one of a long line of former selectmen who, as Baron there would say, go around bragging about government in Danvers. And a big part of the reason that we get to do that is because of the life and career of my good friend, Wayne Marquis.
Thank you, Peter. It's interesting, much as I said earlier on, and it was alluded to, that the rail trail itself was not necessarily an easy thing to accomplish. People should remember that the appointment of Wayne Marquis as town manager was not an easy thing to accomplish. It took 10 months. It took a tremendous amount of negotiation, and by all accounts, a surprise vote just prior to Christmas, in which one select board member changed his vote and allowed Wayne to be appointed. I think now, when I was a 13-year-old kid when that happened. I do remember it. What a different place this town would have been if they hadn't made that right decision back in 1978. Thank goodness that they did. Now I'm going to be joined by another dear friend of Wayne's, Bob Keller.
I feel for the folks out there in the rain. So I almost feel guilty that I'm under this nice warm cover. Sorry, folks. Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here. It's funny. When Nancy asked me, she said, would you say a few words? And I said, of course. And for those who don't know who I am, I get paid to speak. So Nancy said, I know you're a professional speaker. We don't really have a budget. So I said, Nancy, of course I will do this for $5,000 and expenses. Nancy, I am honored, humbled. It's funny. I've spoken all over the world to large audiences, and I'm never nervous. But I'm nervous, and I'm nervous because of who Wayne was. Like, he was like John Wayne. He was like John Wayne to me. When you're a neighbor, and I slept beside Wayne, 20 yards away for 33 years. And when you're a neighbor, it's like you view someone through a snow globe, right? Like there's their family, and you see them. But you don't really know them, especially when you first move in. So I'll share a few stories. We were part of Neil Road in Danvers. The newer part, which is amazing because it's now 38 years ago. And we were the last family to move into that new section. And our broker told us, well, you're lucky because your next door neighbor is the town manager. And I had come from city, so I said, well, what is a town manager? And the broker said, well, it's sort of like a mayor, but better. So I told my wife, I said, you know what this means? Our street will get plowed first. And if you know Wayne, Mill Road was plowed last. As I first got to know Wayne, it was like probably many of you, it was as the town manager. And I would watch him on TV, and I would see some of these heated selectmen, even during the races. And I would be screaming at the TV. And Wayne would be his typical cerebral, calm, level-headed self. And my wife, because she knows me quite well, she would often say, I've been in front of many employee groups, during my corporate years, in which we would acquire a company and the employees don't want to be part of us, and they would be contentious, and it would be this, confrontational type of discussion, and I would want to get confrontational back. Wayne never did that. And my wife would say, you need to be more like Wayne Marquis. I would say you said that to me like 1,000 times. And I practice it, and my kids would say, I haven't perfected it. It's still a work in progress. A couple of times in which my neighbor relationship was compromised by Wayne's town management role. And the first time was we had a swimming pool put in our backyard. And our part of Neil Road was built on fill. So as they were digging stuff up, they were finding all sorts of things in the fill. And they asked me, what should we do with it? I says, well, just throw it on the other side because it'll create stability on the hill. They're throwing things left and right, refrigerators, all sorts of stuff being thrown back there. Wayne comes over in his very kind, peaceful way, and he said, we have wetlands back there. I said, so what are wetlands? I'm a city kid. And he said, well, like the Wetlands Commission, there's the Historical Commission, there's the Environmental Commission. I said, okay, so what should I do? He says, well, I'm just telling you, you should tell them not to throw anything more back there. But it was so funny because in Wayne's way, he was able to reprimand me without me ever feeling I was reprimanded. You know, I did halt all the stuff that was being thrown back at me. You know, the second time that I saw a trusted friend, it was pretty early on in my becoming his neighbor. My buddies and I from high school went on a fishing trip, and we were leaving out of Gloucester, Mass. And it was a day like today, but worse. So instead of fishing, we ended up at Michael's. And, you know, one beer led to a second beer. And we did have a designated driver. Thankfully, it wasn't me. And as we came home, my wife was out, and the door was locked. So you have me and 4 tipsy guys from Everett breaking into the basement window. Now, Wayne didn't know me well at that point, and he came over and he goes, hey, what are you guys doing? And I said, Wayne, it's Bob. He goes, oh, okay. I go, have a good day. And they're sliding me into the window. And I slide in the window, open up the front door. And the next morning, I went over and I said, Wayne, you got to do me a favor. You know, as soon as I went home, I went to bed. But, you know, can you, like, not share this story? And Wayne, in his trusted way, said, what story? You know, he was, you know, in the snow globe way, he was a role model. He was a role model professionally, because I saw how he treated people. And he was so self-deprecating, right? I truly looked at him as almost like an older brother that I could watch through the snow globe and maybe model my behavior and my parenting and my grandparenting. And I'll give you one example. Like, I would always see Wayne out there with the soccer ball, kicking with the girls and going for hikes. And I asked him one day, I said, you know, I'm jealous of this whole hiking thing. I said, my daughter and I would like to do what you do with your girls, and we want to go on a hike. Now, mind you, my tallest height was treetops in my entire life. That was my accomplishment. So Wayne said, well, this would be a good mountain. And through his advice, my daughter and I climbed Mount Mansfield in the White Mountains. The day before we were going, he came over and he said, now, are you all set up? I said, yep, I got sneakers, I got trail mix, and a water bottle. And he said, no. And he brings me over and he gives me all sorts of devices, that thing that you can suck water while you're hiking up. Gave me backpacks. He gave me a compass. Like, he was an Eagle Scout. I got thrown out of the Cub Scouts. So he's like, even then, he's mentoring me just what to do as I spent time hiking and had a wonderful night with my daughter in the AMC hikes. You know, I modeled his role as a dad. He bought a Shih Tzu. I never had a dog. I then bought a Shih Tzu. So even in our dog ownership. And, you know, it went from me respecting him as a town manager to getting to know him as a manager to converting to, oh my God, I love this man as a friend. Like, he's a dear friend. On his last month, I spent time with Wayne and some quiet time. And he asked me, Bob, you know, I don't think this is going in a great direction. And he said, keep an eye on, you know, please keep an eye on Nancy. Especially, you know, snow blowing. She doesn't know how to use a snow blower. So I said, Wayne, of course you don't even need to ask. Then you fast forward, one winter becomes another winter, and I'm no spring chicken. So I'm doing my best, and I look out the window, and Nancy's thing isn't done yet. So I said, okay, so let me kind of get out there. So I decided to call my son, who lives 4 houses away from the Marquis now. And I said, Brendan, I got to share this with you. You know, Wayne's last week, he asked me, he said, can you and your son Brendan and where is Brendan? He's somewhere out there. Brendan, you have stepped up. Thank you. So the Marquis family, I love you guys. You're friends. You're the most amazing people of the town of Danvers. I'm kind of mad. like the park is being named, because I think Danvers should be called Marquis. I am honored to be here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone who knows sort of the history of how we got the name Danvers, which is basically we don't know. Marquisville is as good to me as anyone else. Now the good news is that we have probably ultimately the most powerful person in Danvers right now to speak next. I had the pleasure of serving as the select board with her. She's now the town moderator. Spent, like I did, a bulk of Wayne's career working with him in various items. Pat Frazier, our town moderator.
Thank you, Mike. Nancy, Jennifer, Catherine, I am so honored to be part of the program this morning. Thank you for inviting me. As we look around this park, there is so much symbolism, both the obvious and the subtle, that relate to different facets of Wayne's life. It was purposefully and beautifully designed that way by Dave Mountain, wherever he is out in that crowd. I'd like to note the symbolism in the very location of this park, as well as the rail trail being named for Wayne. How fitting is the location of this park as it sits at the crossroads of trails that bisect our town. From Tapleyville to downtown, out to the Swamp Walk and Choate Farm, and now over to the Essex Tech. And in fact, this location is the very nexus of all that was most important to Wayne. His family on Neal Road, his faith, Maple Street Church, and his work for our citizens, Danvers Town Hall. I find there's also symbolism in the fact that the park now connects two sections of our rail trail. Connection is what Wayne Marquis was all about. That was his gift. The lives he touched, the influence he had on so many, including me, the way he made it easier for others to shine. Watching him at meetings, as I had on many occasions to do over the years, as was mentioned, he always kept his cool. And in those moments, his actions spoke. And his presence alone was enough to shift the energy in the room. But those who knew him best recognized that he did have a little physical tick. When a board member would try his patience, and that was stretching his neck to bring it all back. This bike path itself is all about that approach. His working quietly, persistently in the face of vociferous opposition that all seems a little bit silly now. I am a better leader, a better citizen, and in fact, a better person because of him. You can stack all of Wayne's accomplishments, but his real legacy is the many lives he's touched and his sparking something deeper in the people that he met. At the end of the day, I think what Wayne understood is that it's not about the accolades, not about the spotlight. It is about the impact one has on those around them. As we celebrate his life and legacy today, let each one of us emulate Wayne and aspire to create those same ripples out to the lives of those we touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. I think it's the great thing for me with this just drove home with what Pat just said is the fact that future generations of our town, people who didn't have the pleasure to serve with Wayne or to know Wayne, are going to have this facility and this dedication, and they're going to be able to ask their parents, they're going to be able to say, who is Wayne Marquis? Well, hopefully their parents or their grandparents will know. There's also, when we do uncover that, a little CR code on the corner of the dedication that you can hit, and that will bring you immediately to a site, Wayne in Wayne's own words, which is an interview that he did on DCAT, and people will be able to see that as well. I also realized as I was watching Pat how much we who served with Wayne are now becoming that older generation, based on the fact that her font was about 36. As is mine right now. We're now joined by our illustrious state representative, another townie extraordinaire, whose family has had so much involvement with this community and Wayne in specific, State Representative Sally Kearns.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you to David Mountain, Where Are You, and Ann Freitas, who planned this event today, bringing us together with Nancy, Catherine, Jen, your wonderful families, grandchildren. How proud you must be of your granddad. I'm so honored to be here today, and thank you to Mike, Paul, Dan, Peter, Pat, and Bob for sharing your reflections on Wayne and all he did for Danvers. I'm deeply honored to be speaking. I knew Wayne only because I was, as Mike said, a townie. He was in high school with my brothers at Danvers High. I used to like to remind him that he was in a band, and it was Tyler Mudge, was it not? Okay, good. I'm glad I got that part right. So I knew him in that way, and my father thought so highly of him. He was not on the select board that hired Wayne, but I do recall at one point, maybe when he was hired as assistant town manager, my father said, "We're going to give that kid a chance." And what was ushered in was an era that made this town known for its stellar management, and that was Wayne Marquis, 1,000%. I got to know Wayne a little better after college, first as a town meeting member and then as a reporter at the Danvers Herald. Remember when we had a local paper? And I had the great benefit of instruction from Wayne on everything from cherry sheets to retained revenue. When I was elected state representative in 1990, he was so generous with his time and advice. As has been said, Wayne loved music and he loved open space. Falcon Eyes did a beautiful job singing, and I'm thinking about that Beatles song. There are places I remember all my life. Though some have changed in my life, I've loved them all. How wonderful it is to come to this incredible space, the rail trail, to remember Wayne and his devotion to making sure that Danvers will always have spaces for walking, sitting, hiking. Yes, ball fields and soccer fields, but not just sports fields. Maybe Wayne felt the weight of responsibility for being a good steward of the jewel in our open space crown at that time, Endicott Park. He was hired not too long after the town acquired the 60-acre Endicott estate, which could have become a housing development. He went on, as we said, to become an outstanding town manager, known for his professionalism, for the town's excellent financial health and bond rating. Here in town, we knew he had another passion, not just for financial health, but also just for good health for everyone and the outdoors.
I think Wayne just believed that being outdoors was good for you. It was good for all of us. So he made sure that there would always be open expanses of grass to wander around Danvers. Proctor Farm, the Horace Clark Conservation Land, places to explore, get lost in thought, and imagine the Pennacook that centuries ago walked the same land we now know as town forest. He made sure Danvers had a place to put a canoe or a kayak in the water of the Ipswich River, and thus the West Street Canoe Launch. He earnestly, steadily, almost methodically pursued opportunities to acquire spaces large and small, building support, as has been noted, very carefully for each one. The Miriam Cooper Peach Orchard at Choate Farm, which he very quietly, I think, made sure was named for Miriam Cooper, but he was equally responsible for saving it. LaBelle's Grove, Moore Woods, Ferncroft Pond, and the rail trail. At his core, I think Wayne believed that serene, untouched natural space was not something just for those who could afford a weekend place up north, but that everyone deserves time outdoors in a beautiful pasture or on a trail to run, ride a bike, walk, or do nothing at all, right where they live. He would have blushed and been more than a little uncomfortable to have something named for him, but I think he'd have loved this. So to the town staff who worked on it and made it possible, thank you. When we come here, we'll be reminded of all the fields, woods, trails, and paths that Danvers that Wayne Marquis set aside for our enjoyment. Places to stroll, walk, run, be still, or maybe to strum the guitar. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. As would be the case with any day like this, an event like this, and obviously a facility like this, there are so many people to thank, and I know I am not going to thank all of them, so I apologize in advance. But first, I want to thank the natural resource staff, built the park, Chris Sanborn, Tyler Berry, Dave Barry, Emily McGinnis, J.T. Newton, who was the designer of the park, the current and past boards of selectmen, select boards in Danvers, the Danvers Rail Trail Committee, the Recreation Committee, Danvers Electric, who has done so much over the years for this, the folks at Essex Tech, and I want to remind everybody, it is dry at the cottage. So please come up and enjoy a continuation of this event at the Larkin Cottage at the Essex Tech. Our finance director and former interim town manager, Rodney Colony, all the volunteers who have made the rail trail so amazing. Steve Delaney, our former HR director, who is taking the photos. Thank you so much, Steve. Music by Falcon Eyes, Phil Dubuque on guitar. Thank you so much for all of it. I also want to say something very, very, very important. And I want to thank both Ann Friedis and Judy Smith. Ann Friedis and Judy Smith, Wayne may be the most influential, is the most influential individual in the history of Danvers. He would not have been if it was not for Ann Friedis and Judy Smith. Ann will find a way to yell at me for mentioning her like this afterwards, I'm sure. But again, you cannot begin to understand how much they do in their importance to the operation of this town and also this particular event in this park today. Now I want to do something very special, and I'd like to bring both Jennifer and Catherine up. I think Catherine is going to speak just quickly before we do the final dedication.
surrounded by the beauty of nature, community, and this very cool guitar. Now, many of you know our father, Wayne Marquis, for his role as town manager, and yes, he was certainly that, but I'd like to invite you all to come with me as we share a different side of our dad. A side that will provide some context for this very cool guitar that we are in. Dad, the music man. Dad, the proud owner of a guild, a Collings dreadnought, a GNL legacy. And if those names are unfamiliar, they're just a few knockout members of our dad's proud guitar collection. His other children, if we're being cheeky about it. Dad would hear a song on the radio and say, "Hear that? George Harrison's playing a 1963 Rickenbacker," followed inevitably by a PBS special-worthy deep dive into the craft of guitar making. And if the theme isn't obvious, our father loved music. Playing it, listening to it, teaching it. Whether gigging in the band he and his friends formed as students at Danvers High School, or attending any of the dozens of concerts he frequented with my mom, or his friends like Joni Mitchell, The Doors, Alice Paul, the Jay Giles Band, Orpheus, Led Zeppelin, Tom Rush, Neil Young, Bruce Springsteen, Ed Sheeran. Jamming with his dear friend and guitar mentor, Phil Dubuque, who is here today, who provided the very music he and our dad played together for 10 years. Thank you, Phil. Hosting weekly music nights at home with his closest buddies and a sister, right up until his diagnosis, or teaching his granddaughter, my daughter Noemi, at a play, starting the day he gave her her first baritone ukulele at age 6. In many ways, Dad provided the literal soundtrack to our lives. Christmas carols at holidays, the chords to a song. He helped my sister and me write our mother for Mother's Day when we were kids. Lead guitar, of course, for every happy birthday, but most notably, our daily house music. Dad was the original Sonos. He was the original surround sound. At any moment on any given day, or night, or early morning, he could be found with his guitar in hand, walking from room to room, strumming and singing any of the hundreds of songs he knew by heart. Bob Dylan, the Beatles, Bruce Springsteen, Rod Stewart, hence the lyrics by those artists inscribed on the swings of this community park. His chords filled our rooms, our walls, our hearts, our childhood, our lives, and now our memories. That was Dad, making music, full of music. He was the music. And if you think about it, it makes so much sense. Since the beginning of time, music has brought people together, unifying in celebration, in love, in life, in milestones, in joy, and in community. And if our dad stood for anything, it was community. This community. Each and every one of you. He loved this town, his hometown, like he loved his music, and he would be so happy to see us all together today, surrounded by the beauty of nature, community, and this very cool guitar. And in the spirit of our dad, Wayne Marquis, and in the wise words of Bruce Springsteen, take a good look around. This is your hometown. Thank you.
Come on up. Let's get the grandkids too. We're going to go right over. I'm going to prove to you that I really didn't even need the microphone. So come on over here, guys. I'm going to have you cut the ribbon. So now we invite everyone to please join us at 562 Maple Street, off of 62, to continue this celebration. And I will just say this. Please let everyone know that the greatest memory, or the greatest thing we can do in Wayne's memory, is to use this facility. Use the rail trail. Use the town parks. Take advantage of his legacy of making Danvers a better place. Thank you for all coming, living through this lovely weather, and hope to see you all up at the cottage. Thank you very much.